When your mind becomes your worst enemy, the dark psychology behind Light Yagami's descent. 3 patients walked into my office last week. One believed everyone was plotting against him. Another was convinced the world owed him everything. The third, he thought he was destined to save humanity by eliminating the unworthy. Sound familiar? If you've watched Death Note, you just met Light Yagami in real life. But here is what terrifies me as someone who has spent decades studying the human mind. Light isn't just a fictional character. He's a psychological blueprint that exists in more people than you'd ever imagine. Let me tell you about Sarah, a brilliant law student I treated 2 years ago. Top of her class, perfect set scores, accepted to Harvard. Everyone called her exceptional. She believed it too. Then something shifted. She started seeing every criticism as a personal attack. Every failure as evidence that the world was conspiring against her success. The parallels to Light's transformation were chilling. You see, there's something most people don't understand about the human mind. We like to think we're in control, that our thoughts serve us. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Your mind is not your friend. It is a master manipulator that will convince you of the most elaborate lies to protect its own version of reality. Light Yagami represents the ultimate manifestation of what happens when this mental manipulation goes unchecked. But before we dive into his psychological profile, let me share something that might make you uncomfortable. That voice in your head right now, the one that's either agreeing or disagreeing with what I'm saying, that's not you thinking, that's your mind thinking for you. Dr. Isaac Ephraim, a renowned psychiatrist I recently spoke with, put it perfectly. The mind only wants one thing: for us to control the world. It wants our will to always become truth. This is exactly what we see happening to Light from the moment he picks up the Death Note. But here's where it gets interesting. Light didn't become a monster overnight. His transformation follows a predictable psychological pattern that we see in real life every single day. The first stage, egocentrism. Watch Light in the early episodes. He's not evil yet, just convinced he's special. Sound like anyone you know? Maybe someone you see in the mirror? We all start here. The mind creates this beautiful Garden of Eden where we're the protagonist, where our perspective is the only one that matters. Light sees criminals going unpunished and thinks, I can do better. It's not malicious yet. It's just his mind telling him he's uniquely qualified to judge others. This is where Sarah started to believing her intelligence made her superior to her classmates. The second stage hits when this egocentrism meets power. The Death Note doesn't corrupt Light, it reveals him. It gives his egocentric mind the tools to enforce its will on reality. This is when egocentrism evolves into narcissism. Now Light doesn't just think he's special, he believes the world needs him to be special. Here's something fascinating: narcissists never see themselves as narcissists. I've had patients who exhibited every textbook symptom of narcissistic personality disorder violently reject the diagnosis. Their mind simply won't allow them to see it. Light experiences the same blindness. Even as he's orchestrating mass murder, his mind frames it as noble sacrifice. He's not killing people, he's creating a better world. The mental gymnastics are breathtaking. But there's a third stage that's even more terrifying. When narcissism meets sustained power and zero accountability, it becomes sociopathy. This is when Light stops seeing other people as people. They become obstacles, tools, or threats to his mission. L isn't a worthy opponent. He's a problem to solve. Misa isn't a devoted follower. She's a useful idiot. The scariest part, Light genuinely believes he's the hero of his story right until the end. This is what Dr. Ephraim calls mental hypnosis. Light becomes so dominated by his mind's projections that he loses the ability to see reality clearly. Every event gets filtered through his delusion of grandeur. Kira's growing influence isn't evidence of fear-based compliance. It's proof that the world recognizes his righteousness. Now, before you start feeling superior to Light, let me ask you something uncomfortable. What stories is your mind telling you right now? Maybe it's convincing you that your boss doesn't appreciate your talents. Perhaps it's whispering that your ex was the problem in your relationship. Or maybe it's more subtle, that quiet voice insisting you deserve better treatment from the world. These aren't necessarily wrong thoughts, but they reveal how your mind operates. It's constantly interpreting reality through the lens of your ego, just like Light's mind did. The difference between you and Light isn't that you're immune to mental manipulation. It's that you hopefully don't have a supernatural murder weapon. But here is what really keeps me up at night. We are living in an age where everyone has access to weapons of social destruction. Cancel culture, doxing, viral shaming, these are our death notes. And I see people wielding them with the same self-righteous certainty that Light showed. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone online convinced they are fighting the good fight by destroying someone else's reputation? They're not being malicious in their minds. They're creating a better world by eliminating the toxic people. Sound familiar? The psychological pattern is identical. Egocentrism convinces them they're qualified to judge others. Narcissism tells them the world needs their judgment. And sociopathy allows them to dehumanize their targets enough to feel good about destroying them. Sarah, my former patient, went through a similar journey. She started reporting classmates for minor infractions, convinced she was improving the academic environment. When professors didn't take her complaint seriously, she escalated to social media, painting herself as a victim fighting against institutional corruption. The scariest part wasn't her actions, it was how genuinely righteous she felt about them. So how do we avoid Light's fate? How do we prevent our minds from turning us into the villains of someone else's story? Dr. Ephraim's advice is brutally simple. Accept that the world doesn't give a damn about you. This isn't pessimism, it's liberation. When you truly understand that most people aren't thinking about you at all, that your perceived slights are usually just misunderstandings, that your special mission probably isn't that special, you free yourself from the mental prison that trapped Light. The irony is beautiful. Light's fundamental error was believing he mattered more than he did. He thought the world needed Kira, that his judgment was essential. In reality, the world was just fine before him, and would be fine after him. This realization doesn't make you insignificant. It makes you free. Free from the exhausting burden of controlling everything. Free from the toxic need to be right all the time. Free from the dangerous delusion that your perspective is the only valid one. Light Yagami isn't a cautionary tale about supernatural power corrupting absolutely. He is a warning about what happens when we let our minds convince us we are the exception to every rule, the protagonist of every story, the judge of every situation. The Death Note didn't make Light evil, his unchecked ego did. And unlike supernatural notebooks, unchecked egos are everywhere. The question isn't whether you have one. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Because somewhere right now, someone is picking up their metaphorical Death Note, convinced they're about to make the world a better place. Make sure it's not you.